Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into a really powerful idea for thriving in a world that feels more and more chaotic. It's a concept that says just being tough or resilient really isn't enough, and it shows us how we can actually start to benefit from all that randomness and stress.
All right, let's kick things off with a question. It seems simple, but the answer is, well, it's not what you'd think. What is the opposite of fragile? Just take a second. What's the first word that comes to mind?
So what popped into your head? If you're like most people, you probably thought robust or strong or maybe resilient, right? It feels like the natural, logical answer. If something doesn't break, it's got to be robust.
But here's the thing, robust isn't really the opposite. Think about it. A fragile teacup, it shatters under stress. A robust rock, it just sits there. It resists the stress, sure, but it stays exactly the same. It endures, but it doesn't get any better. So what do you call something that doesn't just survive stress, but actually gets stronger from it? That's the exact question the author Nassim Nicholas Taleb was obsessed with. He realized our language was missing a word for this, so he just went ahead and made one up.
Okay, so let's get right into the heart of it. We've talked about what the opposite of fragile isn't. Now let's nail down what it is.
And here we have it, anti-fragility. It's the wild idea that some things actually benefit from shocks and chaos. It's not about bouncing back to where you were. Nope. It's about bouncing back stronger. Taleb argues this is the secret sauce behind pretty much anything that's survived and thrived over the long haul.
And this little table just nails the difference, using some great old stories. You've got Damocles, right? He's fragile. He's sitting under a sword held by a single hair. One tiny shock, and he's done for. Then you have the Phoenix. The Phoenix is robust. It gets destroyed, but it's reborn from the ashes, exactly the same as before. But the Hydra is anti-fragile. You chop off one of its heads, and two angrier ones grow back. It literally gets stronger from being attacked. See the difference?
Okay, so this is a super cool concept, but how do we actually use it? What does this mean for you and me? Let's open up the Anti-Fragile Toolkit and find out.
First up is something called the barbell strategy. Now, the idea here is pretty simple but powerful. You combine two extremes. On one side, you have extreme safety. On the other, extreme risk. And you avoid that wishy-washy middle ground completely.
So let's talk money for a second. With a barbell strategy, you might put, say, 90% of your money into something incredibly safe. Think T-bills, cash, stuff you just can't lose. Then, with that last 10%, you go wild. You make those high-risk speculative bets. What's the genius here? Well, your maximum loss is capped at just 10%, but your potential for a huge win, it's basically unlimited. You're safe from ruin, but you still got a ticket to the moon.
And look, this isn't just for investors. You can apply this barbell to your whole life. You keep that safe, stable day job that pays the bills, but on the side, you pour your energy into that risky, creative passion project. It's all about balancing that foundation of safety with the massive potential of opportunity.
All right, our second tool has a fancy Latin name, via negativa. But don't worry, the idea is dead simple. It's the art of getting better not by adding things, but by removing them. It's improvement by subtraction. You know how it is? We're always thinking, what new habit should I start? What new app should I download? Via negativa flips that script. It says the biggest gains come from subtracting the junk. Cutting out toxic foods, avoiding toxic people, maybe tuning out the 24/7 outrage machine of the news. When you get rid of the negative stuff, you become way less fragile and actually make room for real growth.
Okay, so we've got the theory. Let's see this thing in action, out in the real world. Because once you get this framework in your head, you'll start to see it absolutely everywhere.
I love this analogy. Think about a package. If it's fragile, you write, "Handle with care, do not shake." The opposite, then, would be a package that says, "Anti-fragile, please shake me." That's the whole idea in a nutshell. And you really do see it everywhere. Think about it. Lifting weights. You're literally creating tiny tears in your muscles, and they grow back stronger. Or your Wi-Fi. Modern systems actually use interference and randomness to create a stronger, more stable connection. And we've all heard of the Streisand effect, right? You try to censor some information, and whoops, it just spreads like wildfire. The things that stick around, the things that improve, they've got this anti-fragile property built right in.
All right, so where does this leave us? What's the big takeaway for how we should be making decisions in our own lives?
Really, it all boils down to this. We need to stop trying to optimize everything for today.
That kind of short-term thinking often makes us more fragile without us even realizing it. The real game is building for the long term. Building systems in our health, our finances, our careers, systems that can not only handle future shocks, but actually get better because of them.
And yeah, this is the tough part. Because playing the long game often means you have to be willing to look like an idiot in the short term. It means trying things that seem inefficient, maybe even failing a little bit along the way, but knowing that every one of those stressors is actually making you stronger and opening up new doors.
And that, right there, is the whole point. The goal is not to perfectly predict the future or get rid of randomness. That's impossible. The goal is to build your life in such a way that you don't have to. It's about getting beyond just surviving the chaos and actually setting yourself up to thrive on it. So I'll leave you with this question. Where's the hidden fragility in your life, and how could you gain from just a little bit of disorder?